Okay, let's try something. Close your eyes for just a second. Imagine stepping out of, say, scorching desert heat, and bang, you're hit by this biting, frigid air. It just takes your breath away.
Yeah, that sharp intake of breath, kind of cold.
Exactly. And the ground's crunching with frost. Everything's white, just endless white. We're talking September 2025. This isn't some movie set,
Yeah,
right?
not at all. It's very real.
It's the actual meeting point for two pretty formidable military forces way, way outside their usual comfort zones.
Thousands of miles away for some of them.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into the 21st edition of Exercise Yudh Abhyas. It's this unique 2-week joint military exercise happening, well, right now, up at Fort Wainwright in Alaska.
Between India and the United States, a really interesting pairing in that environment.
It really is. And our mission today, yours and mine, is to sort of unpack why this particular exercise is so fascinating. Not just for the soldiers trudging through the snow, but for you listening in. What does it tell us about, global dynamics and maybe the surprising strength of some partnerships?
That resilience factor is key.
Definitely. We'll get into how these soldiers, battle-hardened folks from India's really hot plains, are suddenly mastering extreme cold, and why this military alliance seems to be thriving, even when you hear about trade disputes bubbling up between the countries.
It shows some bonds are, well, as they say up there, Arctic tough.
Arctic tough. I like
Huh?
that. So let's start with the location itself, Fort Wainwright. You mentioned it's a central character here. Paint a picture for us.
Okay, imagine this sprawling, almost intimidatingly vast base. We're talking over 1.5 million acres.
Wow, that's huge. Bigger than some countries, you said.
Absolutely. And temperatures. Look, they can plummet down to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It's properly cold.
Minus 50, that's hard to even comprehend.
It is. It started way back in 1939 as Lad Field, specifically to test aircraft in that kind of brutal cold. Now, it's basically the hub for Arctic warfare training. Its whole reason for being is preparing for the planet's most extreme conditions.
But why Alaska specifically for this exercise, Yudh Abhyas? It seems, well, deliberately extreme.
Oh, it's absolutely deliberate. That extreme environment is crucial because the Arctic itself is, well, it's heating up, both literally with climate change and figuratively in terms of geopolitics.
Right, you hear about new shipping routes opening up, potential resource competition.
Exactly. Climate change is changing the map up there.
Huh.
So training in Alaska prepares troops for those kinds of extreme cold weather conditions, which importantly mirrors some of the challenging snowy borders India shares, particularly with China.
Ah, okay. So there's a direct relevance for the Indian forces, too.
A very direct relevance. It's about being ready for complex challenges, wherever they might pop up. Cold environments, high altitudes. It's vital preparation.
So just to clarify for everyone listening, what's the main point of a joint military exercise like this? What does Yudh actually try to achieve?
Well, think of it maybe like a massive, incredibly high-stakes team-building retreat.
Okay, but with less trust falls and more helicopters.
Definitely more helicopters. And rifles and specialists from different armies sharing notes, swapping techniques. The core idea is something called interoperability,
Interoperability, meaning?
meaning making sure these different armies can genuinely work together. Like clockwork. In today's world, conflicts can flare up anywhere. Dense cities, jungles, icy plains. Being in sync isn't just nice to have, it's essential.
And Yudh Abhyas itself means war practice in Hindi.
That's right. War practice. It's all about achieving that vital synchronicity, that ability to operate as one cohesive unit.
Now, this partnership, this exercise, it didn't just appear out of nowhere in 2025. Can you trace it back for us? How did it start? And maybe more importantly, how has it changed over the years?
Sure. It's quite a journey. You have to remember the India-U.S. relationship wasn't always this close, militarily speaking. India had its history of non-alignment during the Cold War.
Right.
But things shifted, especially post 9/11. A shared concern about global terrorism, among other strategic interests, really brought them closer. So Yudh Abhyas kicked off back in 2004.
Okay, the first edition, what was that like?
Pretty modest, actually. Focused on basic infantry skills, getting used to each other's equipment, sharing some meals, maybe learning a few words in Hindi or English, building that foundational relationship. And they started alternating locations, India one year, the U.S. the next.
And then it grew.
Oh, it scaled up significantly. By 2009, they were doing counterinsurgency drills, reflecting the real-world threats both nations were facing. Then 2013 was quite interesting headlines about urban warfare training, mock battles and simulated villages.
I think I remember reading something about rock climbing.
You did. That was a fascinating detail. American troops learning Indian Army rock climbing techniques, skills that are incredibly valuable in mountainous regions like, say, near India's borders.
So it adapted to specific needs and skills.
Constantly adapting. Fast forward to just last year, 2024, the 20th edition in Rajasthan, India. That was the biggest yet. Over 600 soldiers from each side.
In the desert heat that time.
Exactly. Practicing tank maneuvers, rapid response drills, but also classroom sessions on logistics, even things like yoga for mental resilience.
Wow, quite the contrast to Alaska. And the technology aspect, has that changed?
Dramatically.
Yeah.
What started with basic drills is now a pretty high-tech affair. They're heavily integrating drones for surveillance, using electronic warfare capabilities to practice jamming enemy signals, even incorporating basic cyber defense scenarios.
So it's not just ground troops anymore.
Not at all. It's about coordinating across air, land, and the digital space. It really mirrors how warfare itself has evolved globally.
Okay, let's talk about the warriors involved this year, this fire and ice pairing you mentioned. Tell us about the Indian contingent first, the Madras Regiment.
Right. India's sent a battalion for the Madras Regiment. This is one of the oldest infantry regiments in the Indian Army. We're talking roots going back to the 1750s.
Wow, that's incredible history.
It really is. They're nicknamed Thambis, which means little brothers in Tamil. Their combat record is extensive world wars, holding critical lines in freezing conditions in Ladakh during the 1962 war with China, lots of UN peacekeeping missions.
So they know difficult terrain.
They are masters of diverse terrain, from jungles to high mountains. That adaptability makes them perfect for the unique challenges Alaska throws at them. They've really seen a lot.
And the American side, the Arctic Angels.
That's the 1st Battalion, 5th Infantry Regiment. Their nickname is the Bobcats. They're part of the 11th Airborne Division's Arctic Wolves Brigade combat team.
So specialists in cold weather.
Absolutely. This unit is literally built for the cold. The 11th Airborne was reactivated fairly recently in 2022, specifically as an Arctic-focused division, the Arctic Angels. Their whole purpose is operating effectively in environments where, frankly, most armies would grind to a halt.
How do they operate?
Think light, mobile, lethal, trained for things like parachuting into blizzards, skiing across frozen tundra for miles. Their motto sums it up: Arctic tough.
So you have the Thambis' adaptability and deep experience meeting the Bobcats' specialized Arctic lethality.
Exactly. Indian fire meets American ice, you could say.
Hmm.
It's a fascinating combination for an exercise like this.
Okay, with these two elite forces together in Alaska, what's actually happening over these 2 weeks? What's on the drill book? It sounds intense.
It is definitely an intense and packed schedule. It starts, as you'd expect, with arrivals, briefings, getting oriented, but it ramps up very quickly.
Straight into the action?
Pretty much. We're talking heliborne operations,
Mm-hmm.
soldiers rappelling down ropes from helicopters into snowy valleys, practicing quick insertions, maybe behind simulated enemy lines.
And the tech aspect. Drones?
Yes, deploying UAS unmanned aerial systems or drones for surveillance,
Mhm.
scouting ahead without putting soldiers at immediate risk. Then you have things like rockcraft and mountain warfare drills, crucial for the terrain, simulating climbs on sheer icy cliffs.
And dealing with casualties in that environment must be a unique challenge.
Hugely challenging. So they practice casualty evacuation specifically for snow conditions, using sleds, for instance, to whisk injured comrades to safety quickly and efficiently, which is very different from a standard stretcher carry.
What about the more complex, coordinated stuff?
That's where it gets really interesting. They practice integrating artillery fire with aviation support, so having helicopters provide covering fire while ground troops maneuver. They're also focusing heavily on electronic warfare, or EW.
Disrupting communications.
Exactly. Practicing how to jam or intercept mock enemy signals. And it all builds towards a grand finale. Jointly planned tactical maneuvers. This often includes live fire exercises, putting rounds downrange in coordinated ways, and they run high-altitude scenarios designed to mimic UN peacekeeping operations.
Like what?
Picture needing to coordinate a raid on a supposed terrorist hideout located high in the mountains, maybe during a simulated blizzard. It requires incredible coordination.
And I heard there are smaller, specialized groups too.
Yes. Expert working groups dive deep into really specific niche topics, things like countering enemy drones, which is a huge issue now, information warfare tactics, how to maintain communications when the enemy's trying to jam you, and even critical logistics, like how do you keep your vehicle fuel from literally freezing solid at -40?
Right, stuff you wouldn't even think about normally. So Looking beyond the snow drills and the tactics, what's the bigger picture here? The geopolitical angle.
Well, the immediate military goal, as we said, is boosting that interoperability, making sure these forces can function as one seamless unit.
Which matters in the real world, presumably.
Absolutely. Think about a real-world crisis, a major natural disaster, or a complex conflict situation where multiple nations need to respond together. Because of exercises like this, these troops won't be fumbling introductions. They'll know how to operate together. They'll flow.
And you mentioned UN peacekeeping.
Yes, that's a really important aspect. India is one of the world's largest contributors to UN peacekeeping forces, historically. They have vast experience. The U.S. brings its technological advantages, advanced medical support, sophisticated communications, logistics. Training together enhances their combined effectiveness for those kinds of global missions. It's preparing for what they call multi-domain challenges, battles fought across land, sea, air, space, and cyber simultaneously.
And this all plays out on what you call the Arctic chessboard. India's role there is maybe surprising to some.
It is, but it's growing. India released its first Arctic policy back in 2022. Climate change is opening up the region new sea routes, resource potential, and India wants a say in how it's managed, focusing on sustainable exploration.
So they're looking north.
They are. And often partnering with countries like the U.S. potentially helps balance the influence of nations like Russia, which has a long history there, and China, which is also making significant inroads.
China's ambitions in the Arctic are a concern for the U.S., right?
Very much so. China calls itself a near-Arctic state and is investing heavily in infrastructure and research stations up there. Some analysts worry these could have dual military uses. So for the U.S., training with a major partner like India in Alaska sends a signal. It strengthens alliances, not just in the Indo-Pacific, but potentially in the polar regions too.
Okay, now here's the really fascinating part for me. All this intense military cooperation, this strategic alignment, it's happening while there are actually pretty significant trade tensions between the U.S. and India.
That's the surprising twist, isn't it? You're right, we saw just last month, August 2025, reports of the U.S. administration under President Trump imposing potentially quite high tariffs, maybe up to 50%, on certain Indian goods.
Affecting things like textiles, maybe tech components.
Could affect a range of goods, potentially billions in exports for India. So it raises this really critical question. How can the military relationship be so robust when the economic one faces these kinds of headwinds?
What's the answer then?
What this deep dive really seems to show is that despite those economic frictions, the military and strategic cooperation isn't just continuing, it's actually deepening. It's thriving.
So defense ties operate on a separate track.
It strongly suggests that defense and strategic bonds are often insulated, to a degree, from trade disputes. There's a recognition of shared long-term interests that overrides short-term economic disagreements. Someone put it quite well. Tariffs come and go, but strategic partnerships endure.
And Yudh Abhyas isn't the only example of this enduring partnership, right?
Not at all. It's part of a much bigger picture. You have the Malabar naval exercises, which now include Japan and Australia, alongside India and the U.S. There's Vajra Prohar, focused on special forces training. The Quad strategic dialogue, largely seen as balancing China. And even high-level technology sharing, like agreements to co-produce jet engines in India.
That's a huge step.
It's a massive indicator of trust and strategic convergence, a world away from the distance seen during the Cold War or the sanctions India faced in the 1990s.
So wrapping this up, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What does Yudh Abhyas 2025 really signify?
I think it shows that Yudh Abhyas is much more than just soldiers learning to handle the cold in Alaska. It's a powerful, tangible statement about two huge democracies, geographically oceans apart, finding common ground, and actively working together to try and shape a safer and more predictable international environment.
And the impact on the soldiers themselves.
Oh, it's profound. For the Indian troops, they return with absolutely invaluable cold weather skills and knowledge, directly applicable to their operational areas in the Himalayas. For the American soldiers, they gain insights into different operational methods, different cultures, maybe different ways of thinking about problems.
And they build personal connections too, presumably.
Absolutely. They leave not just with new skills, but with stories, with shared experiences, maybe even friendships forged in that extreme environment. That personal connection can be incredibly powerful down the line.
So as we finish, here's something for you, the listener, to think about. This partnership is clearly evolving, adapting. How might these kinds of military alliances need to adapt even further in the future?
That's the big question.
Could we see future exercises focusing specifically on, say, climate security challenges, maybe joint training for Arctic search and rescue operations as the ice melts,
Hmm.
or perhaps even more advanced cyber defense drills, simulating attacks on critical national infrastructure?
The threats are constantly changing.
They really are. And these deep dives into how nations collaborate, how they practice together, really show us that adaptability, that willingness to learn and change together. Maybe that's the ultimate strategic advantage in our unpredictable world.